Okay guys, Brian Bazemore here with Bazemore Studios. This tutorial is about how to do an extraction of hair onto a different background if you're not using green screen. But this is my technique for when the subject has wispy hair like this and you're trying to go from a um, straight out of camera shot to changing the background to something that looks more like an office setting. I get this request a lot from my corporate clients. So what I want to do is make an extraction of the subject and put her on the different background. And there's a lot of different techniques for that. Um, One that I normally will use is the quick selection tool of uh, the most uh, non-transparent part of the subject. And then I'll go in and I'll get my refine edge tool. And I'm doing this pretty quickly today, but you'll get the idea. And when I do the refine edge tool, all of my settings over here at the dialog box on the left, I usually leave those all to the default 0 settings when I'm doing hair selections like this. But for most subjects, this technique will work fine. But when you have a subject that has wispy hair like this, you'll come across this from time to time and you'll see what's left over. Normally it works great, but I want to show you a different technique that I'm going to show you right after I do this normal technique that I normally use. So I'm staying away from the inside of the most solid part of her hair and her face, and I'm just staying on the fringe as I make this selection using the refine edge tool. So we'll do that, and then what I usually do is leave this on. I want to make a new layer with a mask, so I'm going to click OK. This may take just a moment. And here we go. So it made a new layer with just the selected part of the image with the transparency in the background. At first glance it looks great, right? But if I enable my new background and put it underneath that, you can see that it leaves behind this gray fringe that sometimes you can get rid of, sometimes you can't. My normal technique for this is to blur with a Gaussian blur at a level 3 normally. So normally I'm going to take that. Let me take a step back. I blurred the wrong layer. I need to go up and select my mask. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I usually leave it around 3 or 5. Usually works fine. And then I'm going to do a Curves Adjustment layer to that blurred black mask, or to the blurred mask. I usually take it anywhere from a quarter to about halfway. It gets rid of most of that gray. And in most cases it's fine, but if you'll notice how much hair we've lost from the original picture. Okay, so in most cases it works alright to do it that way, but with subjects with wispy hair like this, you're going to lose a lot of the hair. My technique that I use for this wispy hair issue is I'll go back to my original layer, make a duplicate layer, and I'm going to change the blend mode to either, sometimes you can play with it, but either linear burn or multiply. So let's start out with multiply. So it multiplies, or makes basically darkens the original subject. So what I want to do is do a black mask to block out that effect. Go ahead and enable this new layer. And I'm just going to take a white brush now on that multiply layer and paint in the effect. Here. Paint in the effect of that. Actually, I'm going to take my background and go take it down one layer. Right there. So I'm back on my multiply layer. I've got a white brush, and I'm brushing in the effects of that multiply layer. And so you can see how it's bringing in that fringe hair almost perfectly from the original image. Okay, I don't want to come in here and darken the whole thing. I just want to blur, or I just want to paint in the fringe hair. So as you can see, we've kept almost all of the hair from the original image. And if I take away that effect, you can see how much the first technique left behind. So another way you can do it is on linear burn mode. Linear burn is just a little bit different. You can play with painting it away with a black paintbrush on a different opacity. And if I wanted to paint that effect away, I could do that a little bit. But I find that multiply usually works pretty well at 100%. So I'm going to take this back to multiply. Paint that back in with a white brush at 100%. Make sure that stays at 100. And just paint that right on in. So anyway, that's the technique. Again, you're making a rough adjustment to the selection and creating a layer mask. Then you're creating a copy of the original background layer, and you're putting it in multiply mode. Then you're masking out that layer and just painting in the fringe hair from the subject. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much.